All right. Very good. Since we have so many military people here, we have to make sure that we start exactly on time because I know you're going to hold it against me if I don't get started at the correct moment. So I want to say welcome to everybody. This is an informational hearing of the Committee on Veterans Affairs, and today we've asked the California Military Department to speak to us. The California Military Department includes the Office of the Adjutant General, the California National Guard, the State Military Reserve, the California Cadet Corps, and the Naval Militia. And it is comprised of over 21,000 soldiers. I've asked them here today to discuss department structure, programs, strategic initiatives, and the cyber operations strategy in particular. In addition to its traditional mission as a military force, the military department operates a number of outstanding programs, not all of which are well known. And as the chair of the committee and the new chair of the Select Committee on Cybersecurity, I look forward to enhancing the visibility of such programs through informational and oversight hearings. Two such programs we will hear about today are the Work for Warriors Placement Program and the Military Department's Computer Network Defense Team. Further, this year I'm authoring legislation to codify and expand the Work for Warriors program, which has been extremely successful at a remarkably low cost, and legislation to ensure that state entities receive minimum cybersecurity assessments to make sure our state networks and data are safe, a process that's performed by the Computer Network Defense Team. It is my hope that my colleagues in the legislature and those on the Veteran Affairs Committee will support these measures. Before we get started, I have to recognize some Guard members from my district. The 146th Airlift Wing is located at Port Hueneme, and the Oxnard Armory both fall within my district. The 315th Vertical Construction Company is out of Oxnard, and that unit is currently deployed to Kuwait. And I just want to say to them, stay safe and come home soon. Thank you for your service. My district is also home to a top marksman, National Guard Staff Sergeant Leif Devemark. Earlier this month, 4 infantrymen from the California National Guard proved themselves as the Army's elite marksmen when they brought home the top prize in the U.S. Army Small Arms Championship this weekend. So we're very excited to announce that from Ventura County. In winning the Army Small Arms Team Championship, Team California bested 27 other squads from the active duty Army, Army Reserve, and Army National Guard units nationwide. Steve Sergeant Leif Devemark of Ventura, California, earned first place in the pistol match. General Beavers, please pass on my congratulations to your marksmanship team and staff, Devemark in particular. I think I pronounced that 3 different ways, and I actually had the pronunciation right here, so a lot of good that did me. So I would like to invite our Vice Chair first to give any remarks, if he has. You're good? Would any other committee members like to make any remarks? All right, then.
I do want to...
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Brown.
I do want to say that I have to leave a little early, so please forgive me that I won't be here through all of it. But if I get finished with my other meeting, I will come back. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for letting us know, Ms. Brown.
And welcome.
And so we'll have our first witness, Brigadier General Matthew Beavers, Deputy... Adjutant General, Overview, Structure, Programs, and Strategic Initiatives. All right.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members. Pleasure to be here today. And the All-Army Marksmanship Award that we won, that's 3 years running, so it's a three-peat for us. And we're super excited about that. So. Department is organized. Can you hear me? You got it that time, right? Okay. How the department is organized, what our goals and objectives are, and what we're looking to do in the future. And I'm going to go through it pretty quick because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want to leave a lot of time for questions. Next slide. So in the National Guard, we have 3 primary missions. Our state mission, number 1, is first and foremost for us. We are the National Guard. And our authorities to execute our mission are articulated in Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution. So we are completely different than the Army and the Army Reserve in that we have a state-specific mission. Our second mission is our federal mission. That's our mission to fight and win our nation's wars. We've been doing that for 12-plus years, both in Iraq and Afghanistan, the Balkans, Sinai, across the world, Horn of Africa. We've deployed more than 40,000 soldiers and airmen since 9/11, and 29 have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Our last mission is our community mission. In the National Guard, we're fundamentally a community-based force. So by that I mean we are embedded throughout the state. So we're in probably 100-plus communities in every one of the 58 counties, I believe. So we're spread out across the state, and we're fundamentally a community-based organization. Next slide. So this is a military briefing, so we had to have a wiring diagram. I think it's a rule. So there it is. It's pretty self-explanatory, but that's fundamentally how we're organized. 4 distinct components: Army Guard, Air National Guard, the State Military Reserve, and our Youth Community Programs Task Force. We are the second largest National Guard in the 54 states, territories, in the district. We have the largest Air National Guard in the country, and we kind of go back and forth on second or third on Army Guard force structure. So we were a little shy, about 23,000 on a good day, total head count for us. And I'm going to talk specifically about our youth and community programs a little bit later in the brief. Next slide. I mentioned earlier that we're a community-based force, and this kind of graphically depicts where our armories are, where our units are located across the northern part of the state. So you can kind of see we're along the I-5 corridor, heavy in the Bay Area, and then moving down into the Central Valley. Our major organizations in the north, the 129th Rescue Wing, which we'll talk a little bit about later, with 49th MP Brigade, the 115th RSG, and the 100th Troop Command, and of course our headquarters is here in Sacramento. Next slide. The preponderance of our force is located in the south of the state, down in the LA Basin. You mentioned, ma'am, before about the 146th Airlift Wing, commanded by Dave Bakos in Channel Islands. We have our 2 major training facilities, Camp Roberts and Camp San Luis Obispo, also in the Central Coast. 144th Fighter Wing is up in Fresno, and they fly, and I'll talk a little about this later, they fly what they call the Airspace Control Alert Mission. So I don't know if you guys knew when the President was here the other day, ma'am, we were at the summit together. So we have a 2-ship flight out of Fresno that flies a continuous CAP, or Combat Air Patrol, above the President. That way they can ensure that nobody violates his restricted airspace. And they actually, I think they intercepted, I guess, maybe 6 or 7 folks that were trying to fly into his airspace inadvertently while we were there. Next slide. This is an eye chart. I promise it's the only eye chart in the whole deck. And here's why I have this in there. This is what we do every day in the National Guard. A lot of people believe it's kind of a 1 week in a month, 2 week a year proposition. It's absolutely not. We have 5,400 full-time employees at the military department. We're doing things from ballistic missile defense, I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, to our 24/7 Joint Operations Center. We're doing about 10,000 shelter nights a year. We have 9 armories open right now for homeless shelters. Work for Warriors, mental health, retiree ID card stuff. We do it all. We're open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Next slide. Discuss just briefly our warfighting functions or operations. A good example of this is the upper right-hand picture. That's a picture of Emmett Spractis. He is now a retired CHP sergeant. He was also a combat air medic out of our air ambulance company located in Mather. He's famous for winning the Silver Star for rescuing a whole bunch of wounded coalition soldiers in Afghanistan. He wrote a book. He's kind of famous, so we thought we'd throw the picture up in there. The picture in the middle of the RPA, the remotely piloted aircraft, launching a Hellfire missile. That really represents what the 163rd Reconnaissance Wing does down in Riverside. They fly 2 combat air patrols a day from Riverside in Afghanistan, and they're going to go up to 3. They're also responsible for training the entire RPA force for the Air Force. We have the schoolhouse down at Riverside. Next slide. We're heavily invested in Homeland Defense, and this really is hugely, hugely important. If you take a look at the left-hand picture, that is not a picture from the Cold War. That is a picture of a Russian Tu-95 Bear bomber flying along the coast of California, being intercepted by some heroes from the 144th Fighter Wing out of Fresno. The Russians continue to test our air defenses. They'll fly down the coast of Alaska, come down along Canada, Washington, Oregon, California, turn around and go back. And when they do that, we go out and meet them. And that's what it looks like. So we also are heavily invested in ballistic missile defense. You'd think that's kind of an Air Force thing. It's not. The 100th Missile Defense Brigade operates the ballistic missile defense network. That's a launch out of Vandenberg. I think they call that an exo-atmospheric kill vehicle. And that one actually hit the ballistic missile that was launched off Kwajalein Atoll, intercepted it. We're getting very, very good at hitting a bullet with bullets, so we're super excited about that. We also manage the Air Force's Milstar satellite program, the entire program, down at Vandenberg. Next slide. Talk a little bit about our state partnership program. The state partnership program started after the Cold War ended, and we were looking to engage the former Soviet states, Ukraine, Bulgaria, Hungary, Poland, and we did that through the state partnership program. So we've had persistent relations since 1993 with the country of Ukraine. They're having a bit of a challenge right now. They kind of looked towards the east a little bit, and that kind of caught them. So now they got a rough patch going. I just got back from Ukraine 3 weeks ago. It's not good there, and they're kind of in the fight of their lives. But we continue to train them very aggressively. We were there actually negotiating a non-lethal aid package, and we work primarily in the realm of cyber. We also work on aircraft, and we're trying right now to expand into training their Ukrainian National Guard. So that's an ongoing mission that we work in conjunction with the United States European Command. Other partner nation is Nigeria. So we're kind of 2 for 2 on nations that are kind of going off the rails. It's a bit of a challenge. We've had a good relationship with Nigeria, primarily in aviation. They have a pretty aging C-130 fleet, and we spend some time training their maintainers, their mechanics, to maintain their aircraft. We also spend an extraordinary amount of time with Nigerians on rule of law, just governance, civilian control of the military. So our lawyers are there quite often. The picture in the middle represents our relationship with Mexico. Mexico is not a state partnership program country, but we have a relationship with the 2nd Military Zone of Sedena, which is essentially their Department of Defense. And we work very, very closely with the 2nd Military Zone to tie in Customs and Border Protection, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, the Coast Guard, the Navy, all those kind of elements of national power that are along the border of California. We are essentially kind of the connective tissue or the glue that puts all that together. And then we organize that and go down to Mexico. They come and see us. We do it about on a quarterly basis. And it's helped out a ton on interoperability with communication, so we can talk back and forth across the border now where we never used to be able to do that. And establishing those long-term enduring relationships that really help when we're trying to knock back narcotics traffickers and folks like that. Next slide. Civil support operations is the bread and butter of what the National Guard does. Like I talked about before, we are a community-based organization, so we are really responsible for ensuring that we maintain good continuity with our communities and help them when there's emergencies. And we do that through civil support operations. The picture in the upper left is a picture from the Hoopa tribe, and they're doing a ceremony to essentially bless a construction project that we did for them up there. The 2 pictures on the right represent our Homeland Response Force. I'll talk a little bit about those guys later. And the picture in the middle and the picture on the left, lower, represent our wildland firefighting aircraft, both the C-130Js that fly the Modular Airborne Firefighting System and our UH-60 helicopters. And they're painted, does anybody wants to know that color is called electric salmon that we paint them. So just tidbit of info there. Next slide. So we have a lot of unique emergency response capabilities within the California National Guard. We can purify vast amounts of water. We can also rescue injured climbers or hikers at extraordinarily high altitudes. So if you break your leg on Mount Whitney, CHP is not coming to get you, the sheriffs aren't coming to get you, it's the California National Guard that's coming to get you. And we do that all the time. Once every 3 days, I think we're doing a search and rescue mission. The picture in the upper right-hand corner is, like I talked about before, our homeless shelter program. At any time, we could have between 20 or more homeless shelters open, depending on the weather. Right now, I think we have 9 since we have such temperate winter. I want to tell a little story about the picture on the lower left. That's a picture of a pararescueman from the 129th Rescue Wing out in Mountain View in the Bay Area. That's a picture of a rescue from the sailing vessel Rebel Heart. I don't know if you recall that. A family with a young child that was sick went on a, you remember that? Yes, ma'am. Went out on about a 1,000-mile trek out on off of San Diego. They got about 800 or 900 nautical miles off the coast, and the kid got very, very ill. So they kind of hit the distress feature on their communications devices. And you would think that the Navy would rescue them, or the Air Force, right, or the Marines, but they don't. It's the National Guard. It's actually the Air National Guard. The 129th has a unique capability to fly MC-130P aircraft, and right behind that would be HH-60 Pavehawk helicopters that can be refueled in midair. And what they'll do is they'll launch the pararescue jumpers in the C-130s, and they'll jump out of the C-130, go in the ocean, get on their Zodiac, go over to the ship that's been disabled, and perform whatever they need to, maintenance on the vessel. They'll do medical treatment or what have you on the injured people, and then the helicopters will come in and pick everybody up. What happened in this case was that the boat was so disabled that they wound up staying on the vessel, trying to fix it, couldn't fix it, and they wound up getting on a dinghy, and I think, was it, Bucky, was that the Vandergrift? I think it was USS Vandergrift, naval vessel, actually picked them up. So we didn't have to do a helicopter rescue. It was deemed to be too dangerous and not required because the Vandergrift was in the area. So that kid is hanging on to that PJ, and she won't let go. I don't think she did. But anyway, okay, next slide. I talked too long on that slide. So I do want to talk a little bit about this slide because this is hugely important, and it has a lot of issues that go across many, many domains of state government.